This is not to diminish the losses of receiver Miles Boykin and consensus first-team All-American cornerback Julian Love. Notre Dame will miss both of them, Love in particular. But looking at the Irish depth chart, there are avenues to survival without both. Notre Dame will return two starting receivers in rising senior Chase Claypool and fifth-year-to-be Chris Finke, speaking of which, see below. A number of options exist to replace Love, though obviously none will match his shutdown abilities. Either rising sophomore Tarek Bracy will put on the necessary muscle to compete with receivers at this level, or rising senior Dontavon will return reinvigorated with health after recent surgery to repair a torn labrum surgery. A rising sophomore Houston Griffith will move from safety to get his talent on the field, or fifth year Sean Crawford will recover from an ACL tear quicker than expected, or, if one of those pans out, the Irish defense should be comfortable in its coverage, buoyed by the stalwart safety combination of Alohi Gilman and Jalen Elliott. Imagine sincerely saying, stalwart safety combination, just 6 months ago. Look again at the depth chart, and such luxuries do not exist at defensive end. If rising seniors Khalid Kareem and Julian Okwara had not opted to return, Notre Dame's 2019 dreams would have hit a lowered ceiling 9 months before the season began. By no means were they certain high-round draft picks, but the allure of athletic and talented defensive ends may have easily led to some outsized draft hopes. Their backups are certainly more than capable, rising seniors Dalen Hayes and Ade Ogundeji, but a talented second unit is as important at defensive end as dangerous starters are. To replace the latter with the former is to diminish the entire enterprise outright. The Irish could not have recovered from losing both Kareem and Okwara, at least not to the extent where playoff talk would be viable again. Lose one and it would have still been dubious, at best. Take a look at the teams expected to be in the mix for the playoff. Using current championship odds, Clemson at 2-1, Alabama at just less than 3-1, Georgia at 6-1, Ohio State at 8-1, Michigan at 16-1, and then Oklahoma also at 16-1. Those first five have been known for their defenses more than anything else in recent years. Bookmakers put some faith in their ability to reload on the fly. Notre Dame has not earned that trust, and its roster does not indicate it should have. As well as Justin Ademilola performed as a freshman in 4 games, inserting him into a pivotal role in 2019 would likely be a recipe for a mediocre season. He is another year of development away from being ready for that role, barring a Matt Pauley's-induced excellent off-season. The Irish will need Kareem and Okwara to survive the losses of defensive tackles Jerry Tillery and Jonathan Bonner, but if they play as they did in 2018, that is a reasonable ask. If they continue to develop, it becomes the probability more than a Notre Dame leap of faith. The Irish will miss Boykin's back shoulder reliability and everything about Love, but Brian Kelly and his coaching staff coaxed back the 2 most pivotal pieces from NFL draft consideration. Speaking of Finke, he confirmed his intent to return for his final year of eligibility Thursday evening. And he did it in a way only befitting a man comfortable in his own skin. And for the sake of context, Notre Dame is currently listed at 25-1 for the 2019-20 National Championship, tied with Florida and Washington, just behind Texas at 20-1. With the Wednesday announcement of current junior linebacker DJ Morgan's intention to transfer this summer as a graduate with 2 years of eligibility remaining, Notre Dame's roster drops to 87 scholarship players expected this coming fall. Included among them, at least 12, possibly 14 linebackers. Before explaining that, Morgan finishes his Irish career with 2 tackles in 2 2017 appearances as a safety. He moved to linebacker during 2018 spring practices but never came particularly close to playing time. It remained difficult to see him cracking into the rotation moving forward given the quality of recruiting classes at the position in the last 2 cycles. I would like to thank the University of Notre Dame for everything they have done for me, Morgan wrote on Twitter. When I decided to come here, my main goal was to get my degree from this prestigious university, and I am proud to see that I will be completing that goal this summer. During this time I will be searching for a new school to attend as a graduate transfer to finish off my last 2 years of eligibility at the Notre Dame, Oregon. Before facing Louisville on Labor Day, the Irish will need to be down to 85 scholarship players. At 87 now, that does not include incoming freshman J.D. Bertrand, who had a recruitment handled in a deliberate fashion so as to make him eligible for an academic scholarship. Notre Dame also continues to chase 2 defenders, consensus 4-star linebacker Asa Turner and consensus 4-star defensive end Isaiah Foskey, who could balloon the roster count further. Related reading: Notre Dame's offensive depth chart entering the 2019 offseason. Keep that necessary attrition in mind as realizing how many players are at certain positions. Defensive end, 9, Julian Okwara, senior in 2019-2020, 1 year of eligibility remaining. Khalid Kareem, senior, 1 Dalen Hayes, senior, 1 Ade Ogundeji, senior, 2 Justin Ademilola, sophomore, 4 Jameer Jones, senior, 1 Kofi Wardlow, junior, 3 Nana Osafo-Mensah, early enrolled freshman, 4 Howard Cross, incoming freshman, 4 If not for Ademilola's impressive 2018, it would be easy to presume a 4-man rotation next season, but appearing in the Cotton Bowl all but guarantees Ademilola will be in the mix. Defensive tackle, 6, Kurt Hinish, junior in 2019-2020, 2 years of eligibility remaining. Myron Tagovailoa-Amosa, junior in 2019-2020, 3 Jason Ademilola, sophomore, 3 Jamian Franklin, sophomore, 4 Jacob Lacey, early enrolled freshman, 4 Hunter Spears, early enrolled freshman, 4 Lacey will need to be ready for at least 4 games next season, especially with 3 of these 6 returning from injury. Tagovailoa-Amosa with a broken foot, though he did at least take some snaps against Clemson, Franklin from a torn quad that will limit him through the spring, and Spears from a torn ACL that could conceivably cost him 2019. Inside linebackers, 8, Asmar Bilal, 5th year in 2019-2020, 1 year of eligibility remaining. Jordan Genmark Heath, Jr., 2 Jonathan Jones, Senior, 2 Bo Bauer, Sophomore, 3 Jack Lamb, Sophomore, 4 Drew White, Jr., 3 Jack Kaiser, early enrolled freshman, 4 J.D. Bertrand, incoming freshman, 4 It was always going to be a long shot for Morgan as soon as Bauer and Lamb arrived. Rover, 5, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Jr. in 2019-2020, 3 years of eligibility remaining. Shane Simon, sophomore, 3 Ovie Ogufo, sophomore, 3 Maris Lufau, incoming freshman, 4 Osito Ekwonu, incoming freshman, 4 Owusu-Koramoah lost 2018 to injury, making this something of a toss-up between him and Simon for a spring competition chasing the starting role, presuming Bilal does indeed move inside as expected. Alohi Gilman's 18 tackles in the Cotton Bowl loss should set him up for an off-season of further development and possible captaincy. Photo by Kevin C. Cox, Getty Images. Safeties, 8, Alohi Gilman, senior in 2019-2020, 2 years of eligibility remaining. Jalen Elliott, senior, 1 Devin Steadstill, senior, 1 Houston Griffith, sophomore, 3 Derek Allen, sophomore, 4 Paul Moale, sophomore, 3 Kyle Hamilton, incoming freshman, 4 Litchfield Javon, incoming freshman, 4 cornerbacks, 8 Troy Pride, senior in 2019-2020, 1 year of eligibility remaining. Dante Vaughn, senior, 1 Tarek Bracy, sophomore, 3 Sean Crawford, 5th year, 1, with possibly another after that if the NCAA grants a medical waiver. DJ Brown, sophomore, 4 Noah Boykin, sophomore, 4 Isaiah Rutherford, incoming freshman, 4 KJ Wallace, incoming freshman, or someone needs to be Notre Dame's second cornerback, be that Vaughn, Bracy or a healthy Crawford. Someone also needs to be the Irish nickelback, perhaps Bracy, Crawford or a converted safety. The questions at cornerback have multiple talented answers, if unproven or uncertain. They should prove to be the most pivotal to Notre Dame's 2019 success or failure. Former Notre Dame quarterback Brandon Wimbish will continue his career at Central Florida. Wimbish announced his graduate transfer destination Tuesday morning. The journey continues on, Wimbish wrote on Instagram. A sincere thank you to Notre Dame for giving me endless opportunities on and off the field. Words truly cannot describe what this incredible university and the people mean to me and always will mean to me. I'm truly thankful, cannot say it enough. With that being said, I am excited to announce that UCF has granted me an awesome opportunity to play my last year of collegiate football for their great university. Wimbish will enter into a starting opportunity, although an unfortunate one and a competitive one. The late November horrendous knee injury to three-year starter Mackenzie Milton will almost assuredly sideline him through the 2019 season. If not for the injury, Milton would either be starting 2019 for the Knights or headed to the NFL. In his first year of any action, sophomore Daryl Mack played in 10 games for Central Florida, completing 51 of his 100 pass attempts for 619 yards and 3 touchdowns, including going 35 of 71 for 526 yards and 3 scores in the 2+ games Milton missed. In other words, Mack put up Wimbish-esque numbers, despite Heupel's high-scoring offense. Wimbish finishes his Irish career with a 13-3 record as a starter, including 4 wins during 2018's unbeaten regular season. After the Notre Dame offense failed to break 24 points in the first 3 games of the season, offensive coordinator Chip Long turned to Ian Book for a spark. One Book provided and then some. Wimbish's role became non-existent after that, aside from a senior day start in place of an injured Book, throwing for 130 yards and 3 touchdowns while rushing for 68 yards. Related reading: the quarterback Notre Dame needed, Brandon Wimbish. In the lead-up to the Cotton Bowl, word broke Wimbish would seek a graduate transfer, confirming what had long been obvious. It had been so clear, it did not faze anyone within the Irish locker room. Sam must differ on Brandon Wimbish, in case you needed clarification on how Wimbish is viewed in the locker room. In only the fashion that Brandon Wimbish had, news breaks that he's gonna be moving on and people only love him even more. I make fun of him for it. Pete Sampson, @PetaSampson_, December 26, 2018. Must differ and co. Will now have reason to keep an eye on the Knights in 2019. After going 25-1 in the last 2 seasons, Central Florida will want to keep the momentum rolling, particularly with Stanford arriving in Orlando on Sept. 14, a week before the Knights head to Pittsburgh. The Knights genuinely entering the college football playoff conversation remains unlikely, but topping those 2 before rolling through the American Athletic Conference would at least start the discussion, especially if a former Irish quarterback headlines the way. A consensus 3-star prospect out of Virginia, Mack held offers from Eastern schools in the Big Ten, Maryland, Big 12, West Virginia, and ACC, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh. Named 2018's next man in, Wimbish finishes his Irish career with 2,606 yards on 193 of 382 passing with 20 touchdowns and 12 interceptions along with 1,155 rushing yards and 16 additional touchdowns. As for Notre Dame's QB in 2019, early Heisman odds came from an online sportsbook Tuesday, betonline.ag. Irish rising senior Ian Book was given 16-1 odds, tied for 9th on the listing. Given the names ahead of him, Book's realistic chances of winning the Heisman Trophy are slim. Only Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence and Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa have odds lower than 12-1, at 7-2 and 4-1, respectively. Then come 2 Notre Dame opponents, Georgia running back DeAndre Swift and quarterback Jake Fromm, both at 12-1. Michigan quarterback Shea Patterson checks in at 25-1, just ahead of Stanford quarterback KJ Costello at 33-1. If nothing else, Book can count on some early season hype if the Irish top Swift and Fromm on Sept. 21. Inside the Irish Reading, even that way too early. 2019 polls already respect Notre Dame. Notre Dame's offensive depth chart entering the 2019 offseason. Claypool's return welcome news for Notre Dame. Program record 10 early enrollees mark the beginning of Notre Dame's 2019. Autry Denson leaves Notre Dame to take over at Charleston Southern. Notre Dame's opponents' early NFL departures hit Georgia, Michigan and Stanford hardest outside reading. Brandon Wimbush and UCF are a promising match for a pivotal 2019. The three biggest questions in college football for the 2019 season. 2019 NFL Draft Underclassmen Tracker, who has declared Stanford's Bryce Love on the path to recovery from torn ACL. College football's 100 best games 2018-19. A sign of a strong program is one that loses players to the NFL before they exhaust eligibility. In that vein, Notre Dame lost a consensus first-team All-American cornerback, its leading receiver and a longtime tease of a tight end. The last of those Ollies, Mack was never expected back for a fifth season. Replacing Miles Boykin's production is certainly within reason, and a consensus first-team All-American should be expected to take the route junior Julian Love has. Even with that expectation, losing Love, and to a lesser extent Boykin, alters the natural roster cycle, the inherent design intended during recruiting. Reloading is always the hope, the next intention, but very rarely is the young backup comparable to the near professional, even by the end of the coming season. Nonetheless, the Irish got off easy this cycle compared to four of their 2019 opponents. Georgia, junior running back Elijah Holyfield, the Bulldogs' second leading rusher, departs after gaining 1,018 rushing yards with 7 touchdowns on 6.4 yards per carry this season. Frankly, that is the least of Georgia's losses. 3 of quarterback Jake Fromm's 4 favorite targets will leave eligibility on the figurative table. Junior receiver Riley Ridley, 44 catches for 570 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2018. Junior receiver Mecole Hardman, 34 catches for 532 yards and 7 touchdowns. Junior tight end Isaac Nauta, 30 catches for 430 yards and 3 touchdowns. Without running back Karen Higdon, Michigan will presumably rely on its passing game more in 2019. Quarterback Shea Patterson's second season as a Wolverine. Photo by Gregory Seamus. Getty Images. Michigan. The Wolverines got good news when quarterback Shea Patterson opted to return for 2019, but losing leading rusher Karen Higdon, 1,178 yards, 10 touchdowns, 5.3 average will be an issue head coach Jim Harbaugh undoubtedly hoped to avoid. Junior tight end Zach Gentry, Patterson's third most prolific target with 32 catches for 514 yards and 2 scores, will also head to the next level. On the flip side, Harbaugh could have hoped linebacker Devin Bush, team-leading 80 tackles with 9.5 for loss including 5 sacks, defensive end Rashawn Gary, 44 tackles with 7 for loss including 3.5 sacks, or linebacker David Long, 17 tackles with 1 interception, might return, but no such luck for Michigan. Junior quarterback Daniel Jones will head to the NFL after his third season as a starter, immediately lowering the Blue Devils' 2019 expectations. Photo by Grant Halverson. Getty Images. Duke, junior linebacker Joe Giles Harris paced the Blue Devils with 81 tackles, including 7 for loss with 1 sack, doing so in only 9 games. But losing Giles Harris is hardly the concern for Duke. The decision to turn pro from quarterback Daniel Jones is. In his third year as a starter, the junior fought through a broken collarbone to still play in 11 games in 2018, completing 60.5% of his passes for 2,674 yards and 22 touchdowns with 9 interceptions. He added 319 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Jones' decision may come as a surprise, but it is one that should work out well for both him and Notre Dame. Some mock drafts project him as a top 10 pick. In a draft light on quarterbacks, partly because Oregon's Justin Herbert returned for another season, yet already somewhat counteracted by the Monday draft entry from Oklahoma's Kyler Murray, Jones could end up being the 3rd or 4th passer picked. Boston College, the Eagles will say farewell to junior cornerback Hem Shivers after he notched 7 interceptions this season, returning 1 for a touchdown, to go along with 39 tackles. Stanford. This will seem like the Cardinal lost a lot to the NFL draft, but it could have been worse, as the departures mounted, so did speculation junior quarterback KJ Costello might follow them. He opted not to. Stanford will be without running back Bryce Love after his prodigious 2 seasons as the starter. Consider that a loss akin to the Irish Love, the inevitable price of enjoying the success in the first place. Junior receiver J.J. Arcega-Whiteside will capitalize on his breakout season of 1,059 yards and 14 touchdowns, depriving Costello of his favorite jump ball threat. Junior tight end Kareem Smith will also head to the next level, in large part thanks to his 47 catches for 635 yards and 2 touchdowns this past season. Louisville, New Mexico, Virginia, Bowling Green, USC, Virginia Tech and Navy all did not lose anyone early or pseudo-early to the NFL draft. Notre Dame's all-time leading rusher will no longer coach its current running backs. After 4 seasons at his alma mater, Audrey Denson has been named the head coach at Charleston Southern, an FCS-level program, per a release Monday afternoon. The second longest tenured coach on Brian Kelly's staff, behind only defensive line coach Mike Elston, tied with cornerbacks coach Todd Lake. Denson had produced quality Irish backs, peaking with Josh Adams' 1,430 rushing yards in 2017, leading an offense that averaged 269.5 rushing yards per game. "I am so excited for Audrey as he embarks on the next step of his coaching career as the new head coach at Charleston Southern," Kelly said in a statement. "He has done a tremendous job for us during his time at Notre Dame. He not only developed our running backs to produce at a high level on the field, but he was also instrumental in their growth as young men." Only Adams and C.J. Prosise broke 1,000 rushing yards in a season under Denson, though Dexter Williams gained 995 in only 9 games this past season. A third-round pick in 2016, Prosise has spent his entire career with the Seattle Seahawks, while Adams rushed for 511 yards and 3 touchdowns in his rookie season with the Philadelphia Eagles. Williams should join them in the NFL in April's draft. All of them paled in comparison to Denson's college days, a career that saw him gain 4,318 rushing yards, 43 touchdowns and 3 seasons of more than 1,000 rushing yards. A 1998 All-American, Denson then spent 5 years in the NFL. Denson began his coaching career at the FCS level at Bethune-Cookman in Daytona Beach, Florida, a couple hundred miles up the coast from his hometown outside of Miami. "I was drawn to Charleston Southern by the vision of this great Christian university of integrating faith and learning, leading and serving," Denson said. "As a result, I knew this could be a place where I could build and lead a program to honor Christ by operating with character, integrity, transparency, accountability and community." Charleston Southern went 5-6 in 2018 under Mark Tucker, who went 11-11 in 2 seasons before resigning last month.